Welcome to West Coast Grandma. Elizabeth here, and thank you so much for joining me today. I've been trying to get out into my garden to record a video on tomato maintenance and looking after my onions, but the rain has just been unbelievable, even though we're all happy to have some rain. So I decided to get out here anyways, because rain is something that we do have on the West Coast. So in spite of that, I'm gonna record my video on tomato maintenance. I have left mine for a little too long. It's taken me a fair bit of work. I did get started on them, but I'm going to go through what I do to get my tomatoes growing properly and vertically up the fence in my garden. So that's where they are, all down there. And I'm gonna get all set up and I'll show you the process for maintaining my tomatoes. Alrighty, let's get started. This is going to be a task and a half. Actually, it's a double task because me being pretty new at this, I recorded the whole video and I kind of blew it and can't use any of it. Meanwhile, I've trimmed most of my tomatoes, so now I'm stuck in this little spot. I'm in amongst cabbages and broccoli in behind me, and I'm going to try my best to show you how I trimmed my tomato plants. So here we are with a very large and bushy tomato plant. Let's see if I can show you where it begins and ends. So this is pretty well all of one plant right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at the bottom and I'm going to start to trim off some of the stems that come out. Sometimes it'll be a leaf with one of the suckers above it. So let's start with one down here and see if we can show you exactly what I mean. Like, I cannot believe that is a sucker. Now, with any of those, you can root them and you've got another tomato plant. So this is a really big one, but let's see here. Okay. Here's a tiny one that's that I just cut off another tomato. All you need to do is stick that in water. In a few days it'll root and you have another clone of that same tomato plant. So if for some reason you didn't start as many as you wanted, or something happened and you only got one or two plants and you wanted a lot, you can take any of these suckers and you can grow yourself new tomato plants. So let's get a couple of these out of the way here. So there's how the leaf grows, and the sucker will come right out where it joins the main stem and the leaf. That is the sucker that's going to come out. So those are what we're taking off here. So let's get a couple of these so you can see. Now, these are determinate tomatoes, so they are determined to, are indeterminate tomatoes. They are determined to grow right to the top. They're indeterminate. They do not decide how big they're going to get. They just keep on growing. As long as you feed them and give them something to climb, they'll keep on growing. So let's clear all this out of the way here. There's a better example. There was the leaf, and that was the little sucker that was coming out, and then the main stem would have gone out right beside it. So these little suckers, we're going to be trimming those off anytime I'm out in the garden and I see them. I do trim those off. So let's move these out of the way here. I'm going to trim one next to it here too, so that I want you to be able to see the difference it's going to make. All right. Gives me a good opportunity to weed as well. And the nice thing about the fact that we just had a bunch of rain is that it makes it really, really easy to weed. All right, so here is my tomato plant now. If you can see over here, this is another little sucker. We're going to snip that one off. There we are. That looks pretty good. See all the little flowers all forming. Now these are all different kinds of cherry tomatoes. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take one of these little clips. These are the handiest things. They just clip together, and I normally will leave them all on the fence Sorry for the plane. I always forget that we're under the advance runway to the airport. So anyway, so we're going to pull it over towards the fence, and I'm just going to clip it on. Anyway, let's do the next one so you can see. Look at the size of these suckers. They're huge. You don't have to trim every one off either. I mean, there's nothing wrong with having two main stems. I'm just looking at this one here and I'm thinking I'm going to leave this other one that's on here. And here, I'll show you here. See, I would be taking this one off, but I'm going to leave it. There's so many flowers forming on it that I don't know. I think maybe I'll just let it be. And yeah, because they are the cherry tomatoes, so I don't mind if I get tons of cherry tomatoes. All right, so let's pull this one over and again attach it to my fence. Again, the fence is kind of a long way over right here, but it'll still be fine. All right. I missed that one here. Let's try that again. The nice thing about doing this through this fence is I can pick them all from the other side. So it's really easy. Once they're growing, it's not awkward at all to get to all these tomatoes. So actually, I am going to take that sucker off right there. And that one. Now you see, I've left quite a lot of space, a good 12 inches, even a little bit more from where the stem goes out of the dirt, where it comes out. Now I'm going to do one more here. Let me turn this a little bit so you can see if I can do one more that you can see before I leave this part and go on to my onions. All right, so we're going to trim right from the bottom. Sometimes you'll get another stem coming out of the dirt. It's probably sprouted. You know, we said about tomatoes will grow roots all the way up the stem. So sometimes you'll get a really main stem that's coming out of the ground. I still cut those off too. It's just too much for the plant. So let's Alrighty, I am actually going to bring the camera over here and try to show you. All right, see how this is coming right out of the ground? And see this sucker right here? That's gonna come off. So there we are, got that one out of the way. And I'm gonna do one more. See, here's the sucker, and this is the leaf. So let's get those off too. And there we are. So that looks a lot better. See all the growth still up here? So it's not gonna hurt the tomato to take all those off. So let's take this Morning Glory off. I'm going to pull it over and attach it to the fence. So I'll come back in a second and show you when I get that done. All right, there we have all the tomatoes in this little section, all trimmed and attached with the clasps to the fence. So there you go. I'll come right in here so you can just see how much better they look. No room for disease because we don't want them touching the ground, the leaves. We don't want bugs being able to climb up, and we don't want, sometimes they just get from the water, they start to get maybe a bit moldy or mildewy. We don't want that. So this way, there's no growth down at the bottom, and these plants are just going to stay nice and healthy. So there you have it. I will take a picture in probably 2 weeks and let you see how you would never know what I'd been doing today, because they will look beautiful. So anyways, on to the onions. Before I start with the onions, here was the first row of tomatoes that I trimmed. Yeah, they're all the way down to the end. They're looking good. They're happy. I'm happy because I really needed to get that done. And like I say, in a short while, they're going to fill right out, and you'd never know that I trimmed them this much. So I will show you another picture in a couple of weeks. So on to onions. Welcome back, and thank you for hanging in there while I just go and get everything set up here to show you what I'm going to do with my onions. Now, as you can see, these onions are probably, like some of them are like 2 feet tall, and you see how they start to bend over? Well, onions appreciate a haircut. So what I do probably a couple of times in the season is I go along and trim all these green tops down, because I want the goodness to go into creating a nice large bulb. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab my onion and I'm going to trim it and just leave it so that this is about 1 foot. So I'm going to just trim it off like so. And I'm just going to keep them all in a bucket. So you're just going to grab them by the bunches and you're just going to trim these and just leave them all about 1 foot, like so. There. They are going to be a lot happier. You see how they're bending over? They'll literally just break anyway. So these are all so healthy right now. It's a shame just to let them all go to waste. Now you can use these fresh. You can chop them up like you would a green onion and use them in your cooking, or use them in a stir fry, whatever you like. You can just use them just as a regular onion or green onion. But by the time I'm finished doing this whole row, I am going to have a huge bucket. And I could never use all those up. So what I'm going to do is I am going to take you back to the house, and I'm going to show you exactly what I'm going to do and how I'm going to keep them so I can use them for the whole year. So again, we're just going to grab these onions. Just grab a bunch. It doesn't have to be rocket science. You don't have to measure. All you're going to do is grab a handful and trim them off. Now, I actually do this with my leeks as well, and these are the leeks in behind. I don't keep those tops, but I do trim them because I do find that the leeks seem to do a little better. In a week or two, you hardly even notice that you trim them. So I don't think that it's going to do anything to affect the actual growth of the leek or the onions. But it definitely is going to keep them stronger. We want them all upright. We don't want them to start falling over because they're too heavy, because that's usually a sign that they're done when they break over at the neck here, and they'll bend over, and then that's usually a sign that they're done, and you pretty well have to harvest them and then let them dry out to keep for the winter. So for now, we still want these to grow. It's still early. So we're just going to go along and trim them, and then I'm going to take you in and I'm going to show you exactly what I do to keep them and preserve them all for winter use. Well, welcome back to my kitchen. So I brought my bucket of green onion tops into my kitchen. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to fill the sink up and give them a rinse off with cold water just to take any dust off. I haven't seen any bugs on the onions. I don't usually. But anyway, so I'm going to give those a wash in the sink, and then we're going to get them out onto cutting board, and then we will take the next step from there. Okay, I'm going to take it from here. So I just grabbed a handful out of the sink. If there's any that are brown, just chuck those back into the compost. You don't need to use any that aren't perfect right to the end. So we're just going to take our tops like so. I'm just going to put them all together, and then, oh, there's another one that's kind of brown. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to cut them in half here. There we are. So I got a nice pile that's easy to chop up. There we go. And we're just going to cut them, just slice them up, 1/4 of an inch or so, because they're all going to go into the dehydrator. So we're just going to slice them up like so. Again, it's, you know, like most things in the garden, it's a little time consuming. You definitely have to make sure that you've got the time. There we are. I'm going to go right to the end here, chuck that out. And then I'm going to take my dehydrator tray, like so. And I'm just going to put a handful of my onion tops that are all chopped up, and it doesn't have to be perfect. See my calla lilies up here, aren't they beautiful? Anyways, they last for so long. I've got them on my counter because all my family is coming over tomorrow to celebrate my husband's birthday. So it's gonna be fun, and I always like to have some flowers out. So there we are. So we're just gonna continue filling up some trays of the onions, and then we're gonna go put them in the dehydrator, and probably for about 3 or 4 hours. That's about it, on 115 degrees. My dehydrator is from Cabela's, and it has probably a good 12 of these trays. So these are the mats, which I also got at Cabela's, because I found that most things fall through there when they're dehydrated. It was a little annoying that the spaces were so big. So I did get these mats, which you just trim to fit on your trays, and now they're perfect. So I'm going to continue going on. I'm going to fill my trays up, and then I'm just going to pop them into the dehydrator. Okay, and here we have my dehydrator, which I keep back in my laundry room. So I've got all my trays, and I am just going to pop these into my dehydrator. Like I say, this is a nice one. It holds quite a few trays. There we go. Smells delicious. Nothing beats nice fresh onion smell. There we go. Alrighty, so we're gonna close it up, and we'll turn it on, and we're gonna set it to 115. Close enough. All right, so we'll catch you when these are all finished dehydrating, probably about 3 or 4 hours. Okay, welcome back. Now, this took about almost 4 hours, and this is my last 2 trays here of my dried onion tops. So I'm just gonna pour these in. This is really pretty simple, and they last all year. You can use them, like I say, in just about anything. What I typically do is I use them in scrambled eggs, because we eat a lot of eggs. We love our eggs in the morning with my hot sauce. So typically, I keep them on my counter, and I use them most every day. So what I have is, I like the 2-quart size jar here. So this is not gonna fill it that full, but I'll be doing more because I didn't do the whole row yet. So all I'm gonna do is, again, I just use my funnel for canning. It makes it easy to pour it in. Pour them all into my jar, just like so. And I have a couple, again, of my oxygen packets that I save from whatever food I buy that they come with. I keep them, pop those in. And so what I'm gonna do is I keep this on my counter, and with this big jar, I could just go in like that, scoop out a handful, and I just drop that into my scrambled eggs. And in a minute or 2, by the time I'm ready to pour them in the pan, they've all hydrated, and again, I can use them all year long. So I'm just gonna pop the lid on here. And if you can see, I will store it right over here beside my oven, where I have all my oils and salt and pepper and everything else. And that way I can have them available to me whenever I want to use them in any of my cooking. So I hope you've enjoyed learning about the maintenance for tomatoes and a good way to preserve your onion tops. And I hope you'll consider subscribing. That would make me really happy. And hit the like button if you enjoyed this video. I'm hoping to get out and do more garden videos now with all the vegetables all just growing like crazy out there. But tomorrow I might even see what I can do with all my grandkids here. I'm gonna have 7 of them here, so it should be fun. So thanks again for joining West Coast Grandma. Elizabeth signing out.